Welcome to the Why Not podcast with me, Chrissy Hawkins. In a world where everybody asks you why, I'm here to ask why not. So sit back and relax or walk and listen and join me on this journey as we try to answer this never-ending question: what makes people say, why not? Hi guys, welcome back to Why Not. So this is a good couple of firsts going on right now. So firstly, this is my first podcast from France. First solo one in a while, but not like a first solo. And then it's the first time that I'm going to try and record it so I can take like clips for a video. So it's the first time I'm going to have to look at myself while recording audio, which is something I'm not too chuffed about, but you know, I have to get used to it. But basically, I wanted to, it's a bit of a life update. Maybe it's just a little bit of kind of thought on, sorry, I'm sick. Doing what you want to do, going, taking life and going forward and stuff like that. And yeah, this is just kind of a little bit mad. So it's mad to say right now that I'm actually recording this from France because I now live in France for the foreseeable. I'm in Perpignan, which for anyone who doesn't follow rugby, it's in the very south of France. It's actually part of Catalonia. So it's actually a Catalan place, and it is about 30 minutes from the coast of Spain. It's on the Mediterranean. Why did I pick here? Was mostly because it's a massive rugby stronghold, and I thought rugby could be a way to meet people. And from what I've heard, it will be a good way to meet people once I learn how to speak French, which is another big thing. So I think maybe we'll bring it back to why I moved abroad, I think, because a lot of people have asked me, and it really comes down to I always wanted to do it. I always wanted to live abroad. I wanted to move away, see what it was like. I specifically wanted to go to a place that was non-English speaking because it was a bit more of a challenge, a bit more interesting. I wanted to go somewhere that had better weather than Ireland. And all of these things were like really big on my list. But the way life was going at the time is something I'd said in a previous relationship. I wanted to do it. They had said, okay. And I think they just decided like I'd forget about it. And to an extent, I kind of let that happen. I kind of let life continue. I never made any plans. I got comfortable. They wanted to buy a house. And I just kind of started going, that is where my life is going. That's what we're going to do. And I was basically never going to follow what I wanted to do, which was something I was kind of bad for doing, to be honest. But thankfully, they woke up one day and decided they didn't want to be with me anymore. And I know it was building for a while, whatever. But because of that, I was forced into go do therapy, which I absolutely love. I literally am just off my therapy session for this month. So I was like, what better time, because I'm full of energy. Because therapy doesn't always have to be really depressing. Sometimes you have some really good days in it. And I have had a lot of good days last while I've been doing therapy. And I actually look forward to it as well. I do it once a month. When I realize it's coming up, I'm like, yeah. But basically, forced me into therapy, forced me to do a hell of a lot of work on myself. And over the course of the year, I decided I was going to go. And I'll be honest, around this time last year, I ran away on holidays to escape the feelings of everything that was going on. And while I was there, I also met someone else. And I was like, yeah, I'm going to move to Tenerife. I'm going to move away. And if I'm honest, it was because I wanted to run away from everything. And they were going to be there. And it was like almost basically like bouncing from one thing to another. Like, was it what I actually wanted? Maybe. But I was just going to do it because I wanted to run away. I wanted to run away from everything. Everything at home was horrible. I wasn't dealing well with the breakup with my other ex, and it felt like I was free over there. Of course you are free. I was on holidays. It wasn't real life. Anyway, that kind of set the seed of I'm going to go. Over the course of the year, started working towards doing that. There were some ups and downs. Sometimes I thought I was getting somewhere with savings and something would happen. Like we had Nippy, unfortunately, getting very sick and unfortunately leaving us. But Spud's still here. Spud made it to France with me, which I'll get into in a bit. And over time, I kind of did a lot of work and became comfortable with being in Ireland. And at that point was when I knew I did still want to move abroad. Because before, as I said, it was kind of I need this to get away from everything. Whereas now it was a case of, I actually do want to go and explore this. I want to try this. And I basically had everything set. To leave the country with Spud, I had to get a ferry to France. I was supposed to be going to Alicante with the person I was seeing, but I ended up having to make a really big decision. And this happened 10 days before, because here's the thing. When Chrissy does something, she doesn't do it the easy way. She has to do it the most complicated way. Most people would like pack a couple of bags and fly somewhere. No, I had to bring the guinea pigs. So I had to get a ferry and get trains. Anyway, what happened was there was a few things going on in that relationship, a few things he was saying that I was like, And I kind of ignored a few things. And then it was come to the point where like, we are leaving soon. And some of the views you were expressing are making me feel unsafe. And when I expressed that to him, he didn't take it too well. And basically, that kind of made me think really hard. Really, really hard. And I could see myself falling into a pattern again where I was going to let someone else dictate how my life went. And I wasn't ready for that to happen. I'd done so much work. And some of it, maybe the fact that I let this happen or was letting this happen again, was the fear of being alone. I don't know. But basically, I was like, nah, this ain't gonna happen again. And it took a lot. It didn't take a lot. It did. I'm like, it didn't. It was fine. It was not easy. But I made the decision to go, I'm not going to move to a different country with you, where I don't know anyone other than you. I'm a guinea pig. And this is not right. And I made a decision to call it and end the relationship. As I said, literally 10 days before I was supposed to leave. Because as I said, if Chrissy's gonna do something, she's not gonna do it easy. And you know what? I know still now that was the right decision. But I think people don't talk about it. And I did kind of talk about it in my stories, but people don't seem to really talk about, like, when you make a decision that's right for you, it doesn't mean that it's easy. Like, sometimes you make very difficult decisions and you do have a really emotional response to that. Like, sometimes you will be upset, you will cry, you will not feel good about it, you will question your decision, you will want to go back on it because that was safe or what you felt was safe. When you make big decisions that are for the best for you, it's very difficult, because especially if you're not someone who's done it for a long time, it takes a long time to get used to that kind of thing and be okay with putting yourself first and not like putting yourself down or making yourself smaller to accommodate other people. And it's very difficult, and it does take an emotional toll. And I think it's really worth saying that and noting that. So if you have had to make a really big decision or had to do something that you know was right for you, and then you feel bad about it, so you're not questioning yourself. Luckily, that week I had a session booked with my therapist anyway. So I had a really good talk with her. And it's funny, I ended up, like, I haven't cried in therapy for a while, but I cried then. And I didn't cry because I was upset at the breakup. I cried because just the emotion of putting myself first. And I know that sounds really stupid, but like, when you acknowledge how hard it is on yourself to do stuff like that sometimes, as someone like me who never really never really put myself first. It can be very emotional, and maybe it's a mixture of pride, mixture of overwhelm, but yeah, I cried, and I suppose that was kind of the start of. I had 10 days to figure out. The ferry was going. I had it was wild, right? So yeah, the ferry was booked. I was going, and I was like, I'm not gonna let this stop my plans because there'll be another excuse. Now, to be fair, I did try to change a ferry, and that was solely because my rugby team had a promotion relegation. Well, they were the promotion team final, and I really wanted to play it. But what happened was I checked the ferries. And I mean, I checked them and I checked them and I checked them and I emailed them and I rang them. And there was no ferries with a pet friendly cabin available. And I went the whole way into April, like nearly halfway through April. And at that point, it was like, no, Chrissy, you have to go. Like, you you will always find an excuse not to do it. Yes, it's very scary right now. Like there's an excuse now, the rugby game. What next? Um, you're going to have to cross countries, multiple countries on your own with the guinea pig. But you need to make this decision and you need to go for it because you want to do it for a long, long time. And I did do it in the end. What I did was I frantically looked. I think the Thursday before I was supposed to go, on the Tuesday, I finally actually booked my accommodation in Perpignan. I had looked at it before because I was kind of drawn to it. And then I came back to it again and I was like, you know what? This looks like a place that I could like. No idea why, just going completely off vibes, if I'm honest, on the rugby thing. Because as I said, as I thought, if there's rugby down there, I can find a way to meet people and get to know people. And yeah, so off I went on the ferry. And oh, don't get me wrong, I was so overwhelmed coming up to it. Like I was so bad at getting myself organized because I was like, I could be gone in a month. What do I bring? And they're like, it's terrifying because you're like, am I moving or am I moving? Because like I never said the set time of going. So that like basically put me into kind of overwhelmed shutdown of trying to get things ready. And eventually I did manage to get enough stuff together. My parents I'm really lucky. I have so supportive parents, such a supportive family. My parents brought the case over while I traveled. So they came and visited and brought my 20 kilo case while I traveled across Dublin, from Dublin. Well, they brought me down to Rosslare, from Rosslare to Cherbourg to Paris on an unexpected overnight. Let me tell you about that. So yeah, that was a really tough journey. So I had like a carry on like kind of rucksack that was packed with somehow loads of stuff and nothing all at once. Like and a change of clothes, I had pajamas, a towel, but like just loads of random stuff. Like for some reason I had like shampoo but no conditioner. Or was it conditioner? No, I had conditioner but no shampoo. I had micellar water, but like no. Oh, I had a face scrub, but no shower gel. Um, all these like random things. Like even had a face mask. I'm like, why do I have all these wrong things? You know. Um, I had stuff for Spud, but I had nothing to change his clothes. No, I didn't. I didn't have anything proper for Spud, so he ended up on a blanket for one day. Because all the stuff that I meant to throw in one of his mats into his carry cage, but I forgot. And yeah, it was just like this chaos of the travel is so funny. People ask how the travel was, and the travel was fine because the whole time I was busy checking if Spud was okay. I think it was really good to have the distraction, but I had it all planned quite well on how I was going to do it. So when I landed in Cherbourg, there was a train from Cherbourg to Paris, which gave me like an hour or so between another overnight train that was going to get to, I can't remember where, but it was going to get a train, and that train would go to Narbonne, then that Narbonne would go to Perpignan. It was all planned out well. There was plenty of time between all of them. Everything was grand. I did have to change station in Paris though because they were going from two different stations basically. But of course, it couldn't be that easy. And I ended up having to stay overnight in Paris because the train from Cherbourg to Paris, it broke down, and what should have been like an hour and 10 minutes between gave me like 20 minutes, and it was like a 25-minute drive across Paris from one station to the other. So I arrived, I ran out to a taxi, got a taxi, paid 30 quid across town, and of course it was late. It was gone, the train was gone. And here I am, right, in this train station with rats running around it, in God knows where in Paris. There was also a lot of homeless people knocking about, with a big, massive backpack, a hand, like, little bag, and a guinea pig across my shoulder. And it was like 10:30 at night, and I had to figure out what the fuck I was gonna do. And I'll be honest, initially I was like, oh, maybe I'll just stay here overnight, which is the stupidest idea, by the way. Never think that. There is no amount of like money in the world that should make anyone do that, especially if you're like a woman, an unaccompanied woman. I even had a man trying to ask me out for a drink. That was interesting. But I turned him down. So obviously with that guinea pig situation, I was like, shit, will I be able to get a place? But I got onto ChatGPT, Ask Guinea Pig Friendly, got onto booking.com, found a local place, booked it, second paid €130, don't care. Rocked up with the guinea pig. They seemed to not care once I paid the money, and ended up in overnight in Paris. And by the way, as well, my room was on the 5th floor, and it was no lifts, and it was windy stairs. I was bollocks by the time I got to the top of it. But look, when I got back, I got in there. Well, I did go to the shop, get myself some Smirnoff Ice because I deserved it. It had been a hard day. I went and I sorted it out. So I started looking, and I found there was a TGV. Next morning, I was able to change my tickets a little bit. It did cost me more money, but it was worth it in the end. TGV straight to Perpignan, and that afternoon I arrived in Perpignan. And that's when I suppose the most I don't know, is it the most adventurous part? It feels like the most adventurous part, but I suppose getting here and realizing that learning Italian for the last year isn't very helpful when you try and speak French. My first thing, I kept saying "si" instead of "oui." I've now gotten a little bit better. I've mastered "oui" and "merci." But yeah, it's kind of wild. I'm here 2 weeks now, and I still don't speak any French. No, I do speak French. I just can't speak to people. And that's been very overwhelming, because I panic when I go to talk to people, because I'm not in Paris. To be fair, most people do speak English, more English than I speak French half the time. But I'm not in Paris. I'm in a kind of regional area. So you're dealing with accents and colloquialisms that you wouldn't get in different places. And it's very overwhelming. It causes a lot of anxiety when I have to speak to people. But it's also really cool and challenging. And I'm here like 2 weeks. I'm like, I could stay here for foreseeable. I have no reason to believe it won't be a success being here. And I think that has been really, really big change for me, as someone who always struggled with doing things and going out on their own, one thing I will say, and I kind of talked about this with my therapist, is like, one of the things you do is you do spend a lot of time on your own here at the moment. I'm a little bit not isolated, but like, just again, not speaking the language, not knowing people, there's not, it gives you time to focus on work and stuff like that as well, which is good. But she made a good point. Sorry, Spud's looking at me. I'm not on my own. Spud's here too. And basically she sort of said, once you get used to being alone, you don't get lonely anymore. And that really hit me. That was like a really good point, because for a long time I struggled with being alone. You know, I felt like I needed to be talking to people constantly. I needed to have friends or try and find friends or people, you know, and a lot of my friends were always tied to whatever boyfriend I was with. But in the last year, I spent a lot of time on my own. Yes, I was seeing the Italian guy, but he didn't live in Ireland. So I got very used to choosing not to go out and choosing to be alone. And on the flip side, there was days when I didn't. I went to rugby. I went to go socialize over the club all the time. Not all the time, but a lot. You know, I used to do things like that as well. So it's not like I was never doing it, but there was a lot of times, and a lot of it was to save money because I was planning on moving. But I would choose to be alone. So now where I'm in a situation where I actually am alone quite a lot, and I am kind of forced to be alone, I don't feel lonely, because maybe it's because I've practiced it, or maybe as well because I realized that it doesn't matter. Do you know what I mean? Because you're alone isn't a bad thing. It's you know, it's just a thing, you know, and that's helped me a lot. I think that's helped me a lot over here, like being on my own. And I've also put myself out there, and I've gone and I've met up with people I don't know, and I've like tried to make friends. I've tried to speak French. Sometimes, you know, a bit of wine helps that. But all these things, I don't think I would have done a year ago. I wouldn't have done before. And because I'm used to being on my own more now, and being alone and being self-sufficient, I can actually do them and not be worried about it. And I think that's really like really good. Like for anyone who struggles with being alone or feels very lonely, if you learn to make the choice to be alone, it can completely change your mindset. And another thing like here that I'm struggling with is, for instance, is the French, because I don't speak French. Every time I say that, I keep thinking, so well, let the music do the talking, because I'm weird like that. But I know I haven't been practicing it. I've had no reason to practice it. I've always had an issue speaking other languages. I learn languages for fun, and I'm really good at learning languages. But I've always had an issue with speaking them. And the reason I think that is, which I came to a while ago, is like I have social anxiety in English. So if I'm going up to someone I don't know, or if I'm doing something, like I get nervous, I have to like play it off in my head, don't even start me on phone calls. So I have that already. And now you transfer that in a different language, so my brain now has to go into a different language. It makes it like 10 times harder. And what happens often is I'll accidentally speak in the wrong language, or I'll think in the wrong language. And then when that happens, my brain just shuts down. It's like, nope, soz, no can do. And now I know that, and I'm aware of that, it makes it easier. I think as well, like I will say, like rugby did a lot for me last year. Like get me social outlet, get me like learning new skills, made new friends, loads of different things. But one thing it did was it pushed me back into a mindset of beginner's mindset, because I understand rugby. I watched it for years and know exactly what's going on in everything all the time. But actually doing it is a completely different thing. And that was really hard for me to start, because I was like, why can't I do this? I understand what it's supposed to be. And it took me ages to just like shut up and listen to people. And then eventually it clicks. And I think subconsciously, because that happened to me last year, I'm thinking like that now. I'm thinking, well, I don't have the French now. I'm not going to rush it. And I'm not going to beat myself up for it because I don't have French. It's going to click. It will get there. It just hasn't yet. And these kind of mindset shifts have been like massive for me in the last year. Along, like before, I would have blamed myself. It was always my fault. I was really hard on myself. And now I'm just kind of like, it's grand, be fine. You know, and another thing about like being on your own, which is really underrated, is no one gets in your way. So like I found I'm doing things like staying up really late working, or doing mad shit like writing books. And because I'm on my own, there's no one in for me to feel like I can't do that. I need to be doing this now. I need to fit their schedule like I used to. Now I have my own schedule and I do what I want when I want. And it's a game changer. Like, it's putting yourself first is really, really hard. But it's a lot easier when there's no one you have to like distract you from. And I really enjoy being in that kind of position now where I can do whatever I want when I want. And I say that like in the nice way possible. Obviously there'll be time for or to change and things like that when I'm like later on. But right now the focus is on me. And I think if anyone is feeling like they're that kind of person who just does everything for everyone else, you should really look at like what you're doing for you and try it. Give it a go. It's really awkward sometimes. It feels really awkward. Or if you're someone who feels like you need to be surrounded by noise of other people and stuff like that, try being on your own. Try see what happens. And I think problem is sometimes like if you're on your own, the thoughts come in and the thoughts are scary because you don't know what's going to happen. But if you get used to that, like the thoughts are fine. Thoughts will come and go. Thoughts will pass through. Feelings will come and go. Feelings will pass through. Bad feelings are not a bad thing. Good feelings are not always a good thing. You need both to know they exist. So getting used to letting that happen can really like change your life. Obviously I'm going to recommend therapy because therapy really helped me. But yeah, being able to just let yourself be you. And you know, when you do that as well, you will lose people. But it's not a bad thing either because like they didn't like the real you anyway. So now like I try not to too hard to hang on to people that aren't gonna be my vibe. I'm just weird me. And if you like it, great. And if you don't, oh well. But it's really freeing when you start doing that. Now, I'm not saying be an absolute lunatic, but just be you and be happy with being you. And when you do that, like I swear to God, the power in a good way. You feel just so empowered. And I feel like now, obviously, I do still care what people think of me. I do want people to like me, but I'm a little bit more like fine if not. And that took so much work. Like literally, to be honest, it's a great thing. My ex broke up with me. That's gonna sound really bitchy, but I think I'm gonna leave there. I would love to hear people's feedback on this. My little France story, maybe a life story. I'm really like, if you have any questions, do ask me because now like I'm at the point in my life where like I'm just gonna be open. I'll be honest with you. Tell me if you have any questions. I will answer them to the best of my ability. But if you want to follow me, you can find me on Instagram and TikTok. It is at Strong the Saddle with an underscore after it on Instagram because someone beat me to it. And at Strong the Saddle without the underscore on TikTok because I got there first. And then my website is www.chrissyhawkins.com. So I hope you enjoyed this episode. I hope you, I suppose, like, just I hope you enjoyed it. I enjoyed saying it. I'm like really buzzed to be like telling this story and being able to tell everyone. So yeah, I hope you've enjoyed it as much as I did recording it. And sorry for the sniffles as well, by the way, because I have a cold. Because of course.
I really do appreciate everybody who listens to this podcast. So if you please could help me with the algorithm and leave a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. And even, you know, if you want to reach out and suggest topics for me, I'd be delighted to hear from you. Drop me a DM on Instagram or TikTok. And thanks again for listening.